she scores herself 46% of her possessions.
Yep. So yeah, this is like kind of the base overview, and then beneath that it breaks down your percentage that you're in half court versus your percentage that you're in transition. 17.5 is a pretty normal percentage to have for transition possessions. If you notice that that's like a super high number, then that's definitely something that you can note, like she's super heavily weighted in transition. Frank, do you have anything else to say about that?
Yeah, like some other numbers that might be like noticeable that you want to include in the outstanding statistics is like the turnover percentage. If it's above, I would say if it's above like 25%, you would want to include that into your outstanding statistics, because that means that player is prone to like have a turnover
all the time.
Yeah.
Like 1 out of every 4 possessions.
Yeah.
It's like crazy high. Yeah, so then under that you break down, and if you click on this down arrow next to either transition or half court, then it'll give you a further breakdown. So if you go under half court, you now see, all right, so assuming that she's in half court, this is the percentage of the time that she has each one of these play types. And it's always going to be these play types, and they'll list the percentage of the time for every player. Miscellaneous is one that you can kind of ignore, just because like those are all of the ones that. So Synergy, the way it works is that they literally look at video and then tag the plays for each like play type when it involves each player and stuff like that. So miscellaneous are the ones that they kind of missed. But as you can see, most of the time she's used as a spot up player. Then after that it's transition. Then beneath that she's used as a pick and roll ball handler. Each one of these, she's a particularly good scorer. So something that's kind of just an easy thing to look at that'll jump out at times is if the player that you're scouting is not like a stud like Erica is, then they'll have ratings that are generally like average, poor, maybe good. And then if you notice that like they have one specific play type that's like excellent, or they're in a top percentile in like one play type but not in the rest of them, then definitely that's something you want to make sure to note. Like, oh, she's really, really good at offensive rebound putbacks. That means she's good at crushing the ball.
Yeah, like in this case, for her offensive rebounds, 91st percentile, obviously excellent. Also 28.3% of free throw percentage. So she's like pretty productive in like these offensive rebounds plays. So you might want to include that into.
Yeah. So basically, just like I know that as we're just gonna try and give you guys like the breakdown of everything that they have, all of these stats and substats that they have contained on Synergy. It might seem like a lot if some of the stuff that we're saying you guys don't quite understand. That's completely fine. As you do this a few times, you're gonna start to get comfortable with the layout of it. You're gonna know where to navigate to find stats that actually like matter. Also, I'm sure that like as we're talking about this seems kind of boring, but I know that like personally, and Jason and Frank would agree with me, I'm sure that when you go through this, it actually starts to get really interesting looking at a specific player and figuring out exactly what their tendencies are, exactly how we should be playing against them. Right. And that'll also be supplemented by the film we watch. Yeah, Princess?
And like the instructions, do you have like, I guess like certain keys? You mentioned like 25%. Did you like put that down in there?
We will do that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good call. I don't think we have in there right now like specific thresholds that you can look for over under. You guys are certainly going to get, as you do these more, a better idea for yourselves of what those thresholds are, because you'll start to notice, like, relative to the other players that you've scouted, oh, this player has a really, really high free throw rate or something like that. Yeah. So it'll just become more and more obvious as you guys do this a few more times.
A lot of it you can tell too by the rating, excellent, poor. Granted, they don't have it for turnover percentage.
Yeah, but that's super helpful. That Synergy does. Real quick, do you want to show them like what it actually looks like when we pull up video?
Yeah, I was gonna do that. So, again, you could kind of click on whatever you want. If you wanted to just click on her two runners with a short shot clock, you could see those or whatever. But I clicked on all 577 of her possessions.
Yeah, so basically every blue number, you can click on it, and there's a video in it.
Yeah, which is kind of crazy. So this is Erica right here with the ball, number 13. And as usual. They also give you some extra control down here.
It hasn't been continuing,
Yeah.
like looping.
Yeah, I know.
Really?
It's ridiculous.
Okay, so you got to make sure then that like after each clip you click to the next one. But so generally when you first open this up to start with your players, I think it's good to look at one of the overall. Like I said, I like to generally look at like just the half court ones. Jason looks at just like all of the possessions, but I think it's generally good to start off, so that gives you like a really base overview. Obviously, they're just going to be giving you, of those 577 possessions, you're obviously not going to watch all of those or close to all of those, but it's kind of good to get a nice little random sample size. It helps you kind of see what type of a player she is and gives you a general idea, and then the stats can either like reconfirm that for you or help supplement those ideas that you have or maybe contradict them.
What do you think about I just sort of came up with this on my own.
Yeah,
Like,
I would say that in general, before, like the first thing you should do after you get your basic stuff that we talked about, start off with watching like about 15, 20 minutes. 30 is a lot, but if you want to watch 30 minutes of film,
Sure.
that's good too. Because I think once you get 15 to 20 minutes, that's like around, 50, 60 possessions, and that's a pretty good sample size for you to start off with. And then moving forward, you can, I like to definitely choose specific when you notice that like maybe a player's really good at one certain part of their game. It's also helpful to look at the film because you can generally look and see like how they're getting their buckets moving to the right off of a pick and roll, and you can kind of look and see tendencies in their games. And that's something that we really want to note for the coaches. That's something that they are able to like take and game plan for and against. And that's why we're doing this. Like the whole time you're doing this, you got to keep in mind that like we are giving this to the coaches, and it's for them to help learn how to best prepare their players to face this team and to face this player and stop that player.
Yeah, so the idea is like you have the argument, say we want to force some player to drive left, and we will support this argument with our stats as our evidence. So like he has say 33% of turnover percentage when he drives left versus say only 15% drives when he drives right.
For sure.
Yeah. So always like I would say always give coaches some sort of recommendation or advice for them.
I hate you. Yeah, so this is this is one of Jason's that he did last year for Justin Johnson. Kind of a general overview of what this looks like. So you kind of do you want to explain yours, because you set yours up in a slightly different way than I do mine.
This one's yours.
Wait, this is mine?
Yes.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Really? Okay. I guess this is probably from earlier in the year, because when I started doing later in the year is that I would kind of have like a bullet point and then a sub bullet point for.
What is this?
Yeah.
He's an excellent defender. Fucking excellent, man. I just wanted to make sure they really understood what an excellent defender he was. God damn it. Yeah, so as you said, I was very certain that he was overall just an excellent defender. So that was sort of my argument, and then I supported that with the stats saying that he only allows in total .646 points per percentage, which is in the 92nd percentile of the country, so like a top quality defender. And that includes he allows under half a point per possession in spot up, only .78 in post up. Basically, it's just saying that I really wanted to make sure the coaches know that like if you are trying to isolate a guy, you want to try and go elsewhere, or if you want to put a scorer, or if you have a scorer being guarded by him, then you ideally would want to run picks to try and get a switch so that someone else is guarding him, because he's a fucking excellent defender, as I said. Yeah.
This line that Connor put at the top here. So I kind of like doing that too. Something like you can usually find this on their bio on their website, like where they first team all conference, all defense, or something, some sort of just blurb about them that might specifically stand out.
Just and that's not going to be there for every player. Obviously, like not every player that we're going to scout is going to be the top guy on the team. Right. A lot of them, and I would say sometimes it's even more difficult for the ones where we're having you scout a player that only played like 6 minutes a game the previous season, he was only playing 6 minutes a game. So it's a much smaller sample size that you're drawing from. That makes it a little more difficult. They don't have anything outstanding. Like this guy, I was able to say that he led the team in points per game and in rebounds per game. Kind of just lets them know that like this is their best player, basically. Yeah. So if you want, I'll just go ahead and go through a few of these bullet points. I think. So like I said, he's effective as a scorer overall, 51% field goal percentage and 40% from three. But he can't hit free throws. Only 48% from the free throw line is absurdly low, especially for someone who shoots so well from three and from field goal range. So that's one where it's kind of implied in there that like you shouldn't be afraid to put him on the free throw line because he's a good scorer. If he's going to the basket, you might as well foul him.
We have one question real quickly. Go ahead.
Oh yeah.
Oh, what I was gonna say is like, you know how you said like you put some bullet points or something into it. Do you like recommend to put like a bullet point with like a statement and like a sub bullet point with the stat, so it's like more organized, like because that's kind of like a lot of sentences, you know.
Yeah. So this one. I think maybe the Jack Johnson one was from earlier in the year before I started kind of doing that more often. Is this one yours, Jason? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the way that Jason set this up here, I think, is a better way to do it. He said, so he starts off by saying that 39 of his possessions are coming from spot up, and he's 95th percentile with 1.4 points per possession on that, which is very high. And then under that gets into more specifics, specifically about his spot up game. So starts off with the general, he's a really good spot up player, and then beneath that, he's what a good 3-point shooter he is.
Notice his 71% half court 3-point rate. That's super high. Like
yeah, so that's saying that of every single jump shot that he takes, or every single shot that he takes in half court, 71% of those come from three. I think I don't know if you guys remember, but when we showed you one of the intro ones, there's a little white guy on was it Marshall?
Or North Texas?
No, it was North Texas. Yeah, a little white guy in North Texas, and he had 100% half court 3-point rate. So like obviously you can imply from that he's literally only going to try and shoot threes. He doesn't want to do anything else. So run him off the line and make him do something else. They have a super high half court 3-point rate. That's something that's good to know. Also, if you'll notice, this guy's assist to turnover 0.55 is incredibly low. That means for every so for every turnover he has, he only gets like half an assist. Normally a 1-to-1 ratio is like pretty average or so. So if you see one that's like a 2-to-1, that means that they're really good. They get a lot of assists versus not turning the ball over very often. One that's very low means that they're not a very good creator and they're going to turn the ball over a lot. Yeah, Jason, do you want to?
I was just going to say I specified because like 0.55 is pretty low, but it's not because he turns the ball over a lot. His 11% turnover percentage is not super high. It's just that he literally only had 6 total assists on the whole year, and this was fairly far throughout the year, so he doesn't really pass the ball. He's a catch and shoot guy.
Yeah, so like you